Hello, everyone. Welcome to another series or another session of the Saturday Expert Series. Super excited. Today, we are talking about a very special topic. We are talking about the Nakshatras, and it's a really interesting topic related to Jyotish. I have my very dear friend Joey here, and Joey is a yogi, he's a Vedic astrologer, he's also an Ayurvedic life coach, and he is certified by the Council of Vedic Astrology as Jyotish Visharad, which is a big deal. He's been studying Jyotish for over 6 years, and he's pretty fantastic. I had the pleasure of having a reading with him yesterday, and it was really exciting because like our life goes through ups and downs, and it's always good to get a direction of where you need to go. And Jyotish is something that can really help you make those decisions. Like, it won't really make the decisions for you, but it can help you make your own decisions based on understanding the position of planets or nakshatras in your chart as well. So, and for everyone that's looking for more depth of a reading, you can always consult him for astrological consultations. And the link is right there, how you can set up a time with him and how you can work with him. And I'll just hand it over to him today, and we'll be talking about the nakshatras. Hello, Joey, how are you today?
Hello, Judy. Thank you so much for having me
You're most
on
welcome.
your channel today. And it's such a pleasure to be back here talking to you about something that's very near and dear to me. And I think there's a lot of interest. The people that know about nakshatras, they're very interested to learn more. And it's such a vast topic. So, today we're really only going to cover, I would say, like a bird's eye view. Like, people watching today may already know a lot about nakshatras, and this is really for people who don't have any idea of what the nakshatra is or have very little idea, and also how to find out your Janma nakshatra, which is your nakshatra position at the time of birth, and what that means for you, why it's important. If we have time, I'd like to look at a couple of examples, and we can kind of show, astrology. Jyotish is a living science. It's not just something that we're looking at a two-dimensional chart on a screen or a piece of paper. We're taking it and we're turning it into this fourth-dimensional life and looking at the progression of karma throughout time. So that said, how about we just jump right in?
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay, so hang on a sec here. I've got some slides.
So just one quick thing before we get started. So everybody who's watching us live, please say a quick hi. If you know your birth nakshatra already, you can post it in the comment section so we kind of can talk a little bit about it, or you can connect with certain things. Because for me personally, when I understood what my birth nakshatra is, it made a lot of sense. My whole life suddenly made sense to me. That's what I can say. And I'm born in the Ashwini. So my whole life just suddenly was like, okay, this makes sense. So if you know your birth nakshatra, please post it in the comments. If you haven't found it yet, Joey will also be talking about how to find it out. So please post it in the comments quickly. Hi, Dr. Sadanand.
Hello.
Yeah, Joey, go ahead. Perfect.
Okay, so the nakshatra. So we can think of, in Ayurveda, we talk about our manas prakriti, which is essentially the innate state of our mind and our certain, like, our mental tendencies, our emotional tendencies, and that kind of thing. And Jyotish is very complementary to Ayurveda, and it provides additional understanding. When we look at psychology, when we look at even medical astrology, psychological, emotional traits, inherent characteristics of an individual, and also fundamentally, we're looking at how that person actually sees and interacts with the world. So it's really the lens that they wear, the pair of glasses they see when they're interacting with the world. And so, it behooves us to understand more about these nakshatras because they do give us that additional layer of insight. So before we even start that, let's talk about what nakshatra is, for those who absolutely have no idea what I'm talking about. Some of your viewers may have familiarity with Western astrology, which is more like in the Hellenistic world. When we're talking about nakshatras, we're talking more about the Vedic, the Vedic world, which, we use a different zodiac. Anyways, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But nakshatra, fundamentally, what does that word mean? It's obviously a word in Sanskrit, and it comes from three aksharas or symbols. Ksha, which actually means to decay, fade, or change. But when you add the na in front of it, it reverses it. It's not, or non, so non-decaying. And then you add the tra at the end, and it makes it like an or. So we could translate it in English. And again, with that, English to Sanskrit translation, Sanskrit to English rather, there's some elements that are lost. But just to give us a frame of reference, the undecaying, or that which does not fade or change. So in the main text of Vedic astrology, or what most people believe to be the main text, Maharishi Parashara, the great seer Parashara, explains to us that, from these two verses, which I'll read, we see countless dots in the sky. When we look up at night, you're going to see all these dots in the sky. They're called nakshatra, or sometimes they're called graha. And the distinguishing feature between the two is that nakshatras are fixed. Those stars do not move. Arguably, they do move over, thousands and thousands of years due to the precession and recession of the equinoxes. We're not going to talk about that today, but these are fixed. I look up and I see that star, I look up in the night sky. The next night, I will see that star roughly around the same time. Graha are always moving. These are what we call heavenly bodies or planets, okay? So we have this fixed background, and then we have these transitory heavenly bodies that move through that fixed. So depending on where the grahas are placed in those fixed areas of the background, those fixed areas, they have certain stars, they have certain constellations, what we call Yogatara in Sanskrit, which actually is, specific constellations that it's attached to. They carry certain vibrational energies from the archetypes of the deities they represent. So everything, when we study Vedic astrology, there is so much embodied in the Vedic literature that is through archetype and myths and legends, through all of the different Vedic-based literature. So why is this important to us? Why does this matter in this discussion? Nakshatras carry these archetypal energies which are associated with the primal Vedic deities, as I've said. When we learn and we meditate more on the deities, it increases our understanding of these energies and how they're going to manifest in our life. One analogy is that you can look at it and say, we're as atmas, as divine beings, we're descending and taking physical form, with the blessing of these gods. And so we carry that energy with us. And so I like to say in my readings that, we all have our different superpowers, and Jyotish really helps us to understand, those characteristics of us. And this is just another way that we can look at it, a little diagram that I did. So you can see the Earth is rotating, and then the moon is rotating around the Earth. And here we have the 12 zodiac signs. And again, the lineage that I studied Jyotish with, we use sidereal based, which means these zodiac signs are fixed in relation to the actual stars in the background. And you can see Ashvini, Bharani, Kritika, Rohini, Mrigashira, Adra, Pranavasu, Pushya, Ashlesha, Magha, Purva. So it's traveling. The moon is traveling. And so it's always changing. And okay, so now that we have that, we can understand that the nakshatras are fixed spaces. We talked about the yogataras. Now here's the tricky part. From a shastric standpoint, there's many references in many different texts to the nakshatras, but a lot of this knowledge is assumed to be already understood. Maharishi Prashra just basically says complete and total knowledge of the nakshatras is to be known from the general shastras. From these shastras, we will also learn about the results of the rashis and the planets. So as someone who is interested in astrology, you have to dig deeper into the Vedic literature and find the relevance of these nakshatras and why they're so important. So we're going to do a little bit of that today. Typically, when you ask anybody, particularly in the Indian community, if you say, what is your nakshatra? They will tell you, oh, mine is Uttarashadha, or whatever it is. The most important, what they're actually talking about is the nakshatra of the moon, because all of the planets have a nakshatra associated with them in your horoscope. But the moon is the most important one. And we talked about it representing the mind, the manas, our emotional state, shows our inherent capacity to nurture, to love unconditionally. Basically, the feeling of being alive. How does it feel for us to be alive? That is reflected through the qualities of the moon. So the greatest tool that Jyotish can give us is Atmagyana, self-understanding, understanding of why we're here, what our dharma is, how to find our life purpose and how to follow our life purpose, and what our likely future is going to be. So the nakshatra, understanding that nakshatra does unlock that key. So we can use the nakshatras to determine our psychology, the movements of the mind. Just as the moon is always changing, our mind is always changing. It's also important to know if you ever want to schedule an auspicious activity. Let's say I want to launch a new website, or I want to start a new business. I want to travel. I want to do something like that, and I would like to know when is the best time to do it. Well, if I know my nakshatra, that becomes a very easier discussion. Muhurta is such a vast science, but knowing your nakshatra is important. And also, if especially in the Hindu traditions, in the Vedic traditions, there's a lot of rituals, pujas, havans, these kinds of things where the priest, the pandit, who is like the master of ceremonies, will, during the Sankalpa portion, he'll request your nakshatra because he's invoking blessings of that deity for you. So knowing that nakshatra is also important for that. Okay. Now, this is a really, really big list. We're not going to go through all of it, but it just gives you some insight into the 27 nakshatras. So here they are, basically starting Ashwini, Bharani, Kritika, Rohini. They each have a deity associated with it. So you mentioned, Manjari, that your Janma nakshatra is Ashwini, right? Mm-hmm. So the deity behind this is actually the Ashwini Kumaras, the horse-headed twins who, as physician of the gods, perform medical miracles. Which is interesting because you became an Ayurvedic doctor. Typically, people that do have Ashwini will have that connection to the healing arts in some form, because the Ashwini Kumaras had basically learned the recipe of soma, the nectar of immortality. And so there's that association from the Vedic literature. So there's that connection to longevity, rasayana, and that kind of thing, which is, an inherent characteristic of your, of your being. And then the classifications, these are more generally used in the text for muhurta. But anyway, so are there any questions at this point? Because I've done a lot of talking. Well, I'll just put the slides aside for a second.
Yeah. No, I have some comments. So Sadananji is just saying thank you. Lela Bastedo, she just got on this so she can see this, which is interesting. Thank you so much for being here. And Amy B is saying her nakshatra is Uttarashada. So for those watching us, if you have questions, please post it in the comments. If you know your nakshatra, post it in the comments. If you would like to find your nakshatra, post it in the comments.
Yeah. So we can talk a little bit about Uttarashada. It's one that I'm well acquainted with. because it's my Janma Nakshatra, and this is ruled by the Vishvadevas, the all gods of universal gods, or the universal gods. People of this nakshatra generally will have some capacity for good character, nobility, or I don't want to make it sound, like I'm talking about myself here, because this is just a general statement. And again, in Jyotish, there's never like a silver bullet that everything points to this and this is your identity. Everything depends on your horoscope, but there will be some element of good character within that native, and they're also good like at leadership, but not in the sense of like they're in charge of all these people. They're bringing out the good qualities of other people. That's essentially one of the inherent traits of Uttarashada as well. So that's good. We have a few more. We have someone from Bharani. Okay, that's Shailija. So Bharani is interesting. It's associated with the god Yama, which is the god of death. It is also symbolized by Yoni, which is the female reproductive unit. So there's that element of birth and death. And it tends to be a very sharp nakshatra. So the people who have Bharani, they like, generally speaking, my experience with Bharani people, they like to cut straight to the point. They can be, they don't necessarily want to know all the fluff or details. They just want to get straight to the point. The other thing with Bharani is that because it's associated with the god of death, there's that element of death and rebirth in their life, right? So in terms of reinventing themselves or that kind of thing, like that's one of their inherent traits as well. So we're getting a lot of comments actually now, people posting. I don't necessarily know like if we want to just keep doing this.
No, we'll look at we'll do the presentation, then we'll look at the comments, because see, for everyone, and Leila, I just want to answer that question. So she talks, it's her birthday, so happy birthday. Hope you're having a fantastic day. But the Janma Nakshatra is calculated when you were born. So
yeah, it is. And also, we have to talk a little bit about, when you're talking about birthday, there are so many different ways of calculating the calendar. We're currently following the Roman calendar, which is more or less fixed to the equinoxes. But the Vedic calendar is actually based on the Panchang, which is a whole lunisolar movement. So we have something called the Tithi Pravesh, which is the position of the sun and moon, after 12 months, when you're coming back to that point of your birth. So your birthday may not actually always fall on the same day from a Vedic perspective as well. Although, so anyways, I don't want to go there. But it's a very interesting discussion. Let's talk about how to find out your Janma Nakshatra. Okay, so I'm going to share a screen again. Now, what I recommend for people to do is there's a lot of different Jyotish software. I really don't want you to get overwhelmed in terms of reading this chart and what it means. There's only one little portion that we're really interested in to find our Janma Nakshatra, but you can go to deva, DEVA .guru, GURU. This is a web-based astrological software package, actually by a research partner and a fellow classmate of mine who is a brilliant programmer. And anyway, so he's programmed this software. Now, to find your Janma Nakshatra, you'll need to know three things. You'll need to know the date of birth. You'll need to know the time of birth. You'll need to know the city you were born, because that represents the longitude and latitude of where you were when the sun rose, because again, sunrise is different based on your longitude and latitude. Okay, so what I thought I would do is, Manjari, if it's okay, maybe we could go through a couple of examples, and then we can look at like maybe some celebrities and get an idea of how their nakshatra is defining them.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first one, March 28th, 1986. March 28th. I don't know if you can see me updating that. And 9:53 a.m. 53 a.m. And then that's in Manhattan, New York.
Yeah, so just for everybody that's trying to find out their nakshatra, your birth time is also important. So you look at the date, you look at the time, and also the location, and then you can put it in the software.
Right. So again, we're putting the date in here, we're putting the location, and we're putting the time here. So this is the chart of none other than singer-songwriter Lady Gaga. And now to like this is her chart. There's different formats, of course, South Indian, East Indian, and North. Basically the same information. It's just showed graphically in different ways. Now, where I'm interested in knowing my nakshatra is looking here at the Panchanga part on the right. If I go here, nakshatra, it says Swati. Okay, so she is born with the Janma nakshatra of Swati. If we look a little bit deeper at Swati, the ruler of that is Vayu. Vayu is represented by the wind blowing, and Vayu, the deity, is depicted as riding a deer, carrying a bow and arrow. That bow and arrow, like, it's also like connected to like Ardra is also connected to that, but this is more like Vayu could be like a cool, gentle breeze, or it could be a burst, like a gale of wind blowing, right? So Lady Gaga, if you examine her psychologically, like her emotional state can have that. She had a wonderful documentary on Netflix. I think it's still there if you're interested in learning more about her personality. Like it covers it really well, and you can see that element of Vayu that's in her life. People that have Swati, they have fondness of travel. They like making changes in their life, not staying static. Like the wind is always blowing. Sometimes they're born in one area and they move to another area. Situations come into their life, they serve their purpose, and then they move on, and there's no attachment. And they become very unattached to their feelings as well. They don't necessarily reveal their emotions. And this becomes problematic at times because it can create chronic blockages in their life. So and the other thing with the Swati is that if you wanted to befriend Lady Gaga, it would be very important to give her the necessary space that she needs to kind of blow around. And you can see, like, even she showed up at an awards ceremony one night. She was wearing like a meat dress, and she wears like different types of fashion. Like every time you see her, she's wearing some type of different fashion. She's always changing. So there you can kind of create that association and look at her chart and say Swati is definitely having that influence and impact in her life. Okay. Do you want to do another one?
Yeah. I'm also going to quickly share the Druk Panchang one, which is very easy to calculate. So
yes, Vedic Panchang is also a very good website as well. In many ways, it can help you with muhurtas as well. I use it. I don't know if you have an ability to share the link for that.
Yeah, I just did. So everybody who's watching this, if you're not sure about your nakshatra, check out the links I just posted in the comment section. It's on my Facebook, like this talk. It's also in YouTube. So just you have to click on the link, enter the data, and that will also give you information on your nakshatra. Because for somebody who's new, this might like look a little bit overwhelming. Like the chart is like, oh my God, it's amazing. It's super interesting, but it's also like, wow.
The real thing here is that, if you really need like help unlocking this, seeing a competent astrologer, like, is definitely a good idea. because they Jyotish. So Jyotisha, we can even talk about Jyotisha, means showing somebody the Jyoti, the light, right? So you're showing how that divine light is manifesting in their life. A lot of people have, I think this is just, some people believe that, like, due to the predictive nature of Jyotish, that the quality of Jyotish is determined based on the predictions that people make. Now, I would disagree with that. The greatest Jyotish readings that I've ever had in my life are the ones where people have helped me to understand my life purpose, why I'm here, and the general direction that my life is taking. That, I don't think you can put a value on that. It's a very healing process to be seen, to be validated, and to be understood. Not only that, but the parampara, the lineage that I study with through Sanjay Rath, and indirectly, through my direct teacher, Freedom Cole, we learn a lot about remedies as well. So the grahas are showing up in our life in a certain way, in a certain quality. Now, we can't necessarily change where the planets are in our horoscope, but what we can do is improve our relationship with those planets through certain upayas, rituals, through mantra, through meditation, through charitable donations, through pujas and yagyas. Like, there's all these different things that we can do, and what that does is it improves our relationship with those planets, so that when they grasp or seize us, they're doing it in more of a sattvic way. So in that way, we're actually shifting our life. Like, I like to tell people, I'm not a fortune teller, I'm a fortune mender, because to me that is the strongest way of looking at Jyotish. Now, okay, this is the chart here. Christmas Day 1971, Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. This is none other than our current Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau was born with Revati Nakshatra. This is very interesting for him. It makes him, on some hand, on one hand, it makes him very well liked, and I think on the other hand, it's not ideal for a politician to have this nakshatra. The deity is Pushan. Pushan is the nourisher in the Vedas, the shepherd tending to his flock. So Pushan is a protector. He's called Agrani, bright or shining, known for finding the animal that wandered from the herd and helping it stray back. So natives of this nakshatra, they prosper in jobs where they're tending to other people. And you can kind of see that. I mean, even through the pandemic, like, a lot of his messages have been more like, the government's here to protect you, or, we've got your back. I don't know, every press conference, he always says, we've got your back, we've got your back. This is a very Revati thing to do. They value family. They're generally honest, clean and fortunate, good looking, brave, protective. And so absolutely you can see those characteristics within him. However, in situations, political situations or social situations where that doesn't work out for him, it can kind of affect him as well. Like, this isn't a political discussion. This is more of how that nakshatra is manifesting, but you can see that, right? Let's do one more example just for fun. This is a famous Hollywood actress born on 1967. Oops, I made a mistake here. 1967. I hope people are finding this interesting. To me, I just... I love this. So this is that, and she was born in Atlanta, Georgia, and she was born at time of 12:16 a.m. This is the chart of Julia Roberts, the famous Hollywood actress. So if we look at her nakshatra, it's Magha. Magha is connected to the the deity is the pitras, the ancestors. It can also mean the father as well, but this is the nakshatra of authority and respect. There is a sense of honoring lineage or tradition and what has come before. Natives of this nakshatra can sometimes become proud or arrogant, so they need to remember the past. You know, that helps to keep them humble. It helps to keep them, mindful of the heights that they've achieved. They enjoy the blessings of the ancestors' deities. The ancestors' deities are enjoying like the results of the action through the native in this nakshatra. So they take on roles where positions are concerned with the past. They make good historians or archivists or things of that nature. Now, in this case, her chart is that of an actress. It's actually showing up for her, like in roles where she's taken on like historical, like she did a movie called Erin Brockovich, for example, and she received many accolades for that, which was an actual true story. She played or Eat, Pray, Love is another good example. Those roles she tends to shine where she's doing something that from the past, she's honoring the past. So that's of course you can use deva.guru to find your Janma Nakshatra. You can use the Panchang. There's so many different ways you can use that. But I'm just going to stop sharing now. So essentially, when we're looking at the nakshatra, there's so many other things that we're looking at as well in terms of the moon, planetary aspects, and placement and strength and shadbala. But that's for another discussion. Again, today we just wanted to find out about nakshatras. Now, so let's say your nakshatra. Now, okay, so I was born with this nakshatra, and I want to study more about the archetypal energy, the deities that are connected to it. Where can I go? Well, there's a lot of resources. You can go down the YouTube rabbit hole, but you may not surface once. There's so much information out there. What I would like to do today is kind of show a few of my go-to reference books that I really like to learn more about nakshatras. And what we can do, maybe if I can post the links afterwards, maybe on Amazon or something. If people are interested, they can look at purchasing some of these books. Now, this book is a good book for beginners. The Nakshatras by Dr. Dennis Harness, who's actually a good friend of mine. He has the conference in Sedona every year. And he's written this book, and essentially it goes through one by one. All of the different nakshatras are covered in here, and you can learn about other people that have this nakshatra, and like famous celebrities and that kind of thing. Let's say you already know a little bit about the nakshatras and you want to go a little bit deeper and you want more of an intermediate book. Bipin Bihari's Myths and Symbols of Vedic Astrology. This one, again, edited by David Frawley. David Frawley seems to be involved in a lot of these projects, but this is a good one. It's a little bit more steeped in the symbolism and the archetypes through the myths, and it also covers the signs and the planets as well. So if you know a little bit more, typically, when I say I'm an astrologer to people, a lot of people that are Western background, they'll say, oh, I'm a Leo, or oh, I'm an Aries, or whatever. And Vedic astrology is very, very different because we're looking at the sidereal zodiac. Most of us are looking at the sidereal zodiac, and we're looking at the nakshatras. And so just due to calculations, the signs are not going to be the same as they would be in Western. I'm an Aries in Western astrology, but if you look at my sidereal chart, I'm actually back into Pisces. So anyway, so you can learn more about that. Now, the third book, this is for people that are really into Vedic mythology and they want to dive deeper into that. This is my Bible. The Divine Forces of the Lunar Nakshatras as Portrayed in the Vedas. This is by an author called Radhe. And there's no pictures, it's just text, and it's all references to specific Puranas, specific Shastras that have direct access to each of the deities connected to that lineage, and it does a very deep dive on each of the Nakshatras. All of those, I think, are currently available on Amazon. And then, of course, as I said earlier, going to an astrologer, if you're interested in learning more and understanding how your nakshatra is affecting you and how it's showing up in your life, that is invaluable as well. Are there any questions at this point? We can kind of open it up.
With clients, with the viewers, I don't know. I have a few comments, So Casey Clayton says that her nakshatra is Mula.
Mula, okay. Mula is ruled by the goddess Niriti, and it's an interesting nakshatra. Now, depending on the degree of your moon, it can, it's regarded as a very fierce nakshatra. The thing is that it's symbolized by a root. So people that have that nakshatra are good to either connecting to root somehow. It could be getting to the root of a problem or the root of problems. They may be good problem solvers. They may be good gardeners, actually. Gardening is associated with that. There are some fierce aspects as well. Parashara does talk about something called a Bhukta Mula, which is if you're born within 3 degrees of the start of the sign, then that can be something that needs to be looked at a little bit further. But typically, yeah, that's kind of that association, which is really interesting. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, then we have comments on the nakshatras, So Erica says she's Hasta.
Hasta is a fun one too. Hasta is depicted by a hand, and Savitra. Savitra is connected to Surya, the sun, from a Vedic perspective. Hasta people, different people believe that Hasta actually they're good with the hands. They're good with waking up and realizing things in life. They actually make good Hasta Jyotishas. Some of them are known to be like palmists because they work with the hands. So there is a connection with the hands. They could become massage therapists, healers, working with prana in the body. Like, again, with a lot of these mythologies, there's such a wide range. You kind of need to make the connection for yourself. And the more you study and meditate, as I said, the more you'll realize that this is your, secret superpower, and you can manifest that out in the world.
So, one question I have is, or maybe comment that we're talking about the Janma Nakshatra, which is mainly the moon or the mind, right? Because when I had a reading with you yesterday, you were talking about, your sun is in this nakshatra and this is how it's going to happen. So I think that's what I wanted to talk to everybody watching this is, this is the moon nakshatra, right? Or your Janma Nakshatra. But again, there are different planets that are going to be associated with different nakshatras. And when you go for a reading, then you get more details, because your moon is doing one thing, but the sun could be doing something else. And you want to see the whole picture rather than a part of the story, right?
That's very true. I mean, typically in Vedic astrology, we will look at, when we're entering the discussion of nakshatras, we look at everything. We don't, we leave no stone unturned when we're doing chart analysis. However, the primary point of influence will be the moon, although we also will look at the lagna. The lagna is the first house. It is the person's inherent physical characteristics, their body, their identity. The moon is more that reflective quality of how they experience life and that mental lens, but the lagna is more of that, identity. So it's still important. And then all of the other planets, as you mentioned, Parashara said, like as we said in the beginning, that we have these fixed spaces and we have the grahas that are, traveling through them. All of the planets are traveling at different, speeds. So, certain planets will sit in nakshatras for longer, and some will go through really quick, like moon. Every day we're in a new nakshatra, basically. So this is going to change everything. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention on this point as well, there's something called the Navatara chakra, which we use as well. So we can look at your Janma nakshatra, and we know that if we follow the pattern of symmetry, that there are 9 nakshatras in groups of 3, comprising 27 nakshatras in total. If we can follow through the Navatara chakra and we say the 3rd, the 5th, and the 7th tend to be inauspicious. So we look at where you're born and we look at where the moon is. And if it's 3 nakshatras away, then that might be like an inauspicious day for you, or the 5th day, or the 7th day. I mean, again, this is just a general rule, and depending on how you're doing it, like for muhurtas, this is very important. And also for like little predictions, like, your daily horoscope or whatever, you can experiment with that and see how it works for you. So that's why, like, it's very important, like, as soon as you start learning about nakshatras, you need that reference point of where you were born. and so knowing your Janma nakshatra is very important.
This was a really interesting presentation, and it's fun to see and associate people and their qualities with, the Janma Nakshatra, because for me, I think, I found it later on, though, like my chart was made when I was born, probably, like everybody in, most people in India, I can't say everybody, but it made a lot of sense when I started connecting everything. I was like, okay, this is why I chose Ayurveda, because growing up, like my mom was chanting 24/7. She was like super spiritual, and I used to hate it at the time. Like I would seriously, I couldn't stand it. And now I'm so much, doing what she does, my own meditations, my own practice, and kind of slowly finding my own footing with whatever she would do. So it's kind of interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's again one of those things where you learn a little bit of Jyotish and then you want to test it out on everything, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, Jyotish is not, like I said, it's not a 2-dimensional. It's a living. We my teacher, one of the first exercises he taught us to do was to roughly approximate, calculate the moon rise, and he gave us a calculation to do that, and then go out and watch the moon rise, and to develop that living relationship with these grahas, because they are affecting us as above, so below. And it's just like in Ayurveda, like you learn about the doshas. Well, I'm, Pitta Kapha Prakriti, and then you want to associate. Oh, so when you're hungry, you get angry, and you want to like find all these characteristics and add them together. So I hope that I've piqued people's interest in Vedic astrology, and I hope that if they're fascinated, that they go on that journey. Maybe they might want to pick up a book and learn more, or that they may reach out to somebody for reading or consultation. And I'm not necessarily advertising me. If you know someone in your community, go to them, but I'm happy to do consultations as well. So anyways, it was a joy to come here today and share, because
Thank you so much.
I could talk for hours, but I think we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you everybody for watching. And if you have any questions, comments, please let me know. Also, in the same video where I've written the write-up, there's a link to Joey's booking as well. So if you want to reach out to him, if you have more questions, if you want to learn about his process and how he can help you, just start a conversation, and then you can see where you can go from there, right? So take advantage of this wonderful science and knowledge, and everything you can do to better your lives is always a good thing, right? Especially, I think the pandemic has just been crazy on everyone. So I think the whole world is afflicted with some of the grahas, and then personally we are going through.
We've gone through some very interesting transits. Yeah. I'm hoping that I don't necessarily want to make a prediction on a live stream, but I'm hoping that there'll be an end to this very soon.
Okay. Thank you so much once again. Thank you everybody for watching, and I will see you all on Wednesday I think I'm talking about gluten allergy on Wednesday for the Wednesday Wellness series at 1 o'clock. So I'll see you there. Thanks and have a fantastic weekend. Bye, Joey. Thank you so much. Yeah, so you can have the title. So I'll make sure, I'll either put links there
Mhm.
or the names of the title. So we can definitely do that. Yeah.
I can post them on your page, Manjari,
Yeah.
below the video, and then I will do the same on mine for people that follow me on
Okay.
Facebook, and
Yeah.
then they'll be in both places.
Okay. Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Take care, everyone. Thank you
Bye.
for joining.